Good morning, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to this Sunday's episode of Rift Amps. Time to take a look at the orange then. So, if you remember from Wednesday's video, a customer turned up out of the blue with this OR120. We believe it's an early 70s amp, 71, 72, 73, around there. I don't really know much about orange amplifiers. I don't get many through the door. They were never my thing growing up, so my knowledge isn't the best on them. So, as always, if you have any good information on these things or any good hints or tips or tricks, let me know in the comments. Always happy to learn. So anyway, it's a pretty cool story. So the guy who now owns this amplifier was at a rehearsal studio playing with his band, and someone else heard them and said, "Oh, I've got this really old amp that I've had in my conservatory for 30 years. Hasn't been turned on in that time. If you get it working, it's yours. You can have it." And so the customer has been trying to do that. He ordered a full set of valves for it and did the thing you absolutely shouldn't do, which is plugged it in and see if it would work. Unfortunately, it doesn't. There is no output. He said there was a little bit of hum and crackling, but the 4x12 cabinet that comes with it, I'll show you this another time, has got quite a dodgy looking speaker cable on it. So anyway, that's where we are. Couple of things to note. I'm not sure when the changeover was, when they went from the printed text to the icon dials, and I don't know which way around it was, whether the dials came, the icons came first, or whether the printed text came first. So again, if you know, pop it in the comments. So well, let me show you the underside, and then this thing weighs an absolute ton. Then we'll have a look, shall we? Get some better lighting. There we go. That's looking good. Okay, so no output from the amplifier, and it was making some weird noises. Well, first thing I see is here are the can capacitors, and you can see this one clearly leaking electrolyte, and this one is starting to as well. So before I'd even power this amplifier on, I want to get those swapped out. It's got one of the very early style circuit boards, when it's clearly had at some point some components replaced. I mean, these F&Ts are dated 1992, so you know the amp could have already done 20 years service before these things were swapped out. But these RS caps I think are original, but they might be replacements. Again, I don't know. I'm not that clued up on these amps. It's got some mini spragues up here as well. Okay. So what have I found? Well, the screen resistors look like they've been replaced before, and you can see some scorch marks on the orange paint below here. So it's obviously had some service work done before, and these have been lifted quite far out of the way of the valve sockets. Probably quite excessively. I mean, you can't see on camera, but they're roughly that much above the socket. Probably don't need to be that much, but you know, it's a good thing, maybe. And what I have found, oh god, I helped if I showed you. What I have found is this wire here, completely loose. Now that's probably the heater supply, because that's pin 9 there. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, yeah, so that's the other heater supply. So that's probably why these valves weren't lighting up, and therefore why there was no output. So we're going to have to sort that. He does want this thing making safe, but we are doing just a resurrection on it, not a restoration. So, you know, the minimum required to get this thing going, make it safe, whatever. It's got a multi-tap primary on it, and it's got a voltage selector. It's currently fitted with a 2-prong plug, but as you can see, it is damaged. So he's agreed that I can put a UK 3-prong plug on it. And we will hardwire it so it'll only run on 240 volt. Looking at this board, what else can I see? Lots of brown goop and stuff between the caps. So has it had a hard life? Probably. So yeah, it's just going to go through it really, make sure it's all good and fine. But the absolute first thing I do before I fire this up, I want to put a proper plug on it. I want to replace the 2 CAN capacitors and resolder that heater wire. Then I can fire it up on the test bench through the light bulb limiter and see what we get. Right, the first 57 Tweed limited edition, limited run amp is now done. So, front logo badge all in place, looking really smart. Here's your control panel. Just spin the cabinet around to show you. Obviously we don't need a ground switch, so that's been eliminated. You've got the simple on-off switch here, dual light, Rift logo badge there, master tone, and the 2 volumes, 1 for each channel. And as you know, on these I always have the 3rd chassis mount screw on the transformer. So I've got a bracket on the transformer, so you've got the extra support there. Rear warning badge for the rear, make sure it's all legal. And as you know with this one, you had a choice of a Celestium Blue or the limited edition Celestium 100 Silver Alnico, which this particular amp has. The only thing the customer requested was a super long speaker cable, so he could then connect things up. He wants to run like an aux box or something on top, so that's what this particular one has. But look how good that looks. Mega happy with that. And I'm sure the customer will be too. So I've just got to box this one up and then crack on with the second one, get that one all assembled. And then, yeah, on with the next stuff. Was contacted by a long-standing customer of mine who has a PR18 brown panel head, chap in Germany, and he made a little bit of a mistake. And what he did was he left the amp in a sunny windowsill with the foot switch on top, I'm guessing like that, and went away for a long break over the summer. And when he came back, as you know, the brown Tolex does change colour in sunlight. And he came back and he found that the top Tolex had faded somewhat in the bright sunlight, and underneath his foot switch was a different colour spot. So he held his hands up and said, "Look, I've done this. What can we do?" I said, "Well, no problem. We'll just supply you a new head cabinet, all drilled, all ready to go, new handle fitted, and all he's got to do is just swap all the bits over when it arrives." So yeah, lesson learned, I guess. Right, mail time. Had another box arrived, unannounced. No idea who it's from. So let's get this thing open. It's packed well, because I can't work out what it could be. I do like that you guys send me stuff, but it is a bit Ooh, ooh. Does feel a bit odd because, you know, people don't send me stuff. Anyway, we've got a box, load of jams and chutneys by the looks of things. Oh. Right, let's have a look then. First one. I think I know who this is from, actually. I think I know who this is from. So the first one, we've got a gooseberry chutney, June 2004. Oh, that's spicy. Oh, yes. Yes. So there's 4 jars in here. Second one. Let's get this thing open. We'll have a look. Plum and apple chutney. Oh, that's amazing. I meant to start on Ozempic today because I need to lose some weight for racing. But this is not going to help one bit. Here we go. Chili sauce, September 2024. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, yeah, that's fresh. Look at the colour on that. Right, and the final one. Hot chili jam. There she is. That's kind of like a bright marmalade colour, isn't it? Maybe a bit more carroty orange. Oh, that's different. Oh, I don't know what that is. Smells good, but Oh wow, that's got honey in that. Woohoo! Amazing. So I know who sent this. Thank you so much. That's amazing. I'm going to enjoy that. Probably not going to get through all of those until Christmas time. But thank you. If you want to send me something in the post, please do. I do enjoy my treats and my things and my bits and pieces. Cash would be nice, obviously. But if you want to send me a little treat or something like that, coffee's always good as well. That would be great. Slight correction, actually. These are not from who I thought they would be from. Now, so apologies to that person, but Duncan, thank you so much for these. You did promise you'd send me some a couple of months back, I remember now. So thank you so much for these. I do appreciate that. That's amazing. Really going to enjoy those. Much love to you. Okay, so I've just fired this up on the bench, having replaced the 2 filter caps. Now, they were 100 microfarad, 450 volt caps, which I couldn't get direct replacements for. So what I've done is I've managed to find some dual 100 100s, and I'm just leaving one of these sections unused. So JJ cans. There you go. So they're in. Resoldered the preamp heater wire back in place. Fired this thing up, and if you look at this footage now, you'll see that this the screen resistor 4, we'll call this V3. Got very hot, started smoking, even on restriction mode, and you can see it's discoloured there. So there's clearly something wrong. Pulled the valve, the short disappeared. I then moved 3, 4, 5, V6 over to V3. The short didn't come back. Put that valve back into its position, put the original valve back in, and the short has disappeared, which doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure what's going on there. So maybe a socket issue, but again, this is the sort of thing why we have a light bulb limiter, so we can spot these issues from the beginning. Anyway, the amp is now stable. Voltages across all 4 output valve sockets are roughly the same, which is good. Yeah, so now I can carry on with the next measurement, see if we can get this thing to pass signal. The current wall consumption is 36 watts with the bulb in place, which is what I would expect it to be. So at the moment, I'm happy to carry on and give this full power and see if it will pass some signal. Okay, so it's not great news. It's not bad news, but it's not great news. So the current consumption out the wall in full power mode is over 200 watts, and it keeps climbing. The bias voltage on the output valves is far too low, so they are running extremely hot. They're not quite red plating, but I'm pretty sure they will. So I'm going to have to recommend to this customer, so I didn't get this back on restriction mode, I'm going to have to pull the board. I want to swap out the caps in the bias supply. We may as well do the rest of the filter caps and the other electrolytics on the board whilst it's out, and go from there, because this thing, as it currently stands, will cook itself to death very, very quickly. So that's going to be my recommendation to the customer. I will send him an email and see what he comes back with. Right, so whilst I am waiting for the customer to come back to me on the orange amp, we'll get crack on with a little bit of work on the Gary Moore Bassman. So as we saw on the oscilloscope, very strange oscillations and sine wave output when you've got the bright cap on the normal channel switched in. But this amp is full of small, tiny issues that all need rectifying, all need doing and sorting out before we go any further. There's no point in me trying to diagnose anything else whilst there's so many small, obvious issues that need fixing. So I'm going to spend about an hour today just going through this chassis, sorting out solder joints, dodgy components, bits and pieces like that, just so I know I've got a good baseline to work with when trying to diagnose some of the other issues with the amplifier. So that's really my task, because I don't want to be chasing my tail, to be honest. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Just going to work my way left to right as I normally do, just sorting out issues as I go. Cold solder joints, dodgy caps, dodgy resistors, whatever. Let's just go down the line, sort these things out. And then we've got a good baseline to work from. So if you remember from Wednesday's video, we noticed there are some really poor solder joints on this satellite board here. Now, most of you will know this by now, but this is the combined full wave rectifier for the high voltage circuit. These string of diodes here, and then we've got our bias supply here. So you've got a high voltage winding from, a low voltage winding from the transformer, I think it's 55 volts, that stepped down slightly with this 470 ohm resistor, rectified into negative DC through this diode here, and then filtered through this cap, and then it goes off to the rest of the amplifier through this yellow wire. So now these aren't the original diodes. These are not the original diodes for the amp. So somebody's worked on this before. And of course we know that because this capacitor has been replaced as well. And it's got this really weird red gloop going on. But clearly when this board was worked on before, it was removed from the amp, and the 2 high voltage wires from the transformer for the high voltage supply were obviously desoldered and then resoldered in place. And as we saw in the old video, They were barely soldered in. They were very, very loose. The bias winding that attached here was better, but still not great. So overall, the work on this board, whoever did it, needs a slap on the wrist, because it's not good enough, especially for an amp of this vintage and the history of it, that sort of thing. And on the back side, it's just have some pride in your work. So I'm going to go through and clean this off. Clean it up, sorry. Or check the value of this resistor. Might be time to put a new bias cap in anyway, because again, it looks like an older Sprague. The diodes will be fine, but these, I want to remove all this solder and put new joints in place. I want to clean both this board and the underboard up, and then we can reinstall it, and then we know that this is good to be used in the amplifier, and I haven't got to worry about that part of the circuit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll give you an update shortly. Okay, progress update for you. I decided to completely redo the board. So I've stripped that completely down. You can see this sort of weird glue that is used to hold that cap in place. The cap measures way out of spec. The 470 ohm resistor, way out of spec. So I thought I'd just completely strip the board down. We'll do it all fresh anyway, give it a good clean up. But my solder sucker has decided to break. So got a new one on order. So in the meantime, I've gone through the board and replaced all of the bits that were either way out of spec or looked very like they had a lot of heat damage or anything like that. The only ones I haven't done so far are the 2-plate resistors for V1 and the slope resistor as well. They measure in spec, but I don't know if they're noisy or not. So I'm going to leave those for the time being, and if they do need swapping out later on, we can. New cathode resistors all across the board, the 1K5s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, along with new cathode bypass resistors, capacitors. So those have been done. Resorted out the mains input wiring. I've used the old death cap hole as a mount for my earth bond, rather than the transformer bolt that was up here. So I've done that, rewired and reconfigured the mains wiring. So now the live comes in, goes to the fuse holder first, then the switch, then the transformer, the neutral straight to the transformer. All good. So all I've got to do now is wait until we get the bias board done. I can get that back into the amplifier, then we can fire it up and see where we are. Just having another quick think about Ed's RK50 build. Before I went away, I did wire in V1, and looking at this, quite happy with it so far, but I think I've made a tiny mistake. It's a small mistake that's going to need a big fix, in that the circuitry for the phase inverter is slightly too far away, so I'm going to have longer wire runs than I would ideally like, which I think now is the best time to fix it. So how am I going to fix it? Well, I'm going to shift the board over. I've probably got half an inch here, half an inch or 5/8, something like that, gap here, that I could shift the board over, and that's just going to move everything over slightly, just to kind of optimize that layout. And so all I've got to do is I'm going to have to undo all the V1 wiring. It's fine, it's part of the game. This is prototyping, this is custom building. But it's always going to bug me if I don't sort it now. So I think that's what we're going to do. I'm going to have to still try and use the same holes on the board. Or maybe I'm going to have to drill one here. And drill a new mount in the chassis for this one. So I'll have to work that one out. But that's, yeah, taking a pause on this to rectify that. Otherwise, it's going to bug me forever and ever and ever that it wasn't as good as it could be. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. The customer did drop down the matching 4x12 cabinet for the OR 120 head. And I always forget just how big and heavy these things are. It's not a small thing, much larger than the Marshalls. Come on, tape measure, behave. Sorry. "30.5 inches wide." What's that? 91.5 barleycorns? Yeah, 93 barleycorns? Something like that. Anyway. Yeah, absolutely monstrous thing. Deep as well. Weighs a ton. So he wants me to check this thing out, make sure it's all good. This is the cable that was attached, but it's not looking very attached right now. And if we come around the back, we can see why. So I'm not sure exactly what's happened here, but it's missing the jack plate, which that should be wired to, and then you can use a standard speaker cable. So let's get the back of this thing off and have a sneaky peek inside. There's only 2 screws holding the back panel on. I hope the customer's got the rest of them. I know he's got the ones for the head cabinet, but yeah, anyway. There you go, Orange Music. Numbers 3 and 4, New Compton Street, London, serial number 5312. Right. I genuinely could not tell you what speakers would be in this. I'm going to have a guess if it's 70s. Are we looking at greenbacks? Blackbacks? Probably Celestian. Not sure they used Fane, but do you know what? I don't know. I can't remember. Place your bets now. 3, 2, 1. Wow. Okay. I was right on the blackbacks. 3 of them. G12H. Heavy magnet blackbacks. 1, 2, 30 watts each. 1, 2, 3. And a G1280. Is that a replacement? It must be. It has to be a replacement. Why would that be replaced then? Well, wouldn't be for a tonal reason if it's just one of them, unless, I don't know, maybe they only mic'd this particular one up on stage and he wanted a slightly different voice. That's always a thing. But the blackbacks are usually good, aren't they? I always like the sound of them. Anyway, what have we got down here? Not wired up like the Marshalls with the twisties, look. So we've got series parallel arrangement. Sorry, I was just working that one out. Interesting. Nice cabinet construction. Looks all right, doesn't it? Doesn't look bad. There will be a way to date these blackbacks. T1217, that's the model number. But we might be able to find out more details on this cabinet. But yeah, that's inside. That's cool. So I'm going to get a jack plate for the rear panel, so we can return this to normal spec. And then he's not going to have any issues with connecting this thing up, because remember, he said it made some weird noises. And judging by the state of that connection and that wire, I'm not surprised. Okay, I've had a look online for a schematic for this OR20, and there's quite a few different variants and variations depending on the year and who's drawn it and things and bits and pieces. But this particular one that I found, drawn by B. Hickmott in 2004, is the closest one to the amplifier that I've got here, and it's drawn quite well. So everything on these 3 pages match the amplifier that's here, whereas the others did have some differences on them. The only thing that is different on these schematics versus the amp is that the grid stoppers for the output valves are listed as 2K4s, but the amp has 2K2s, which is an E12 value, so that's probably correct, and these might be wrong, or the particular amp that he drew this from had 2K4 replacements. But anyway, yeah, apart from that, these are correct. So as you can see, we've got a non-adjustable bias supply, and these are the 2 caps that I want to replace in that bias supply, along with the 232 microfarad filter caps and the 216. So we're going to do, when I pull the board, that's what we're going to do. And in the preamp, there are 2 cathode capacitors, one a 50 microfarad there and a 50 microfarad there. So whilst we've got the board out, that's going to be done. So that's the plan for that. But here's the I thought I'd show you the can caps that were in there. So they were Plessis, just a single capacitor, a 100 microfarad with a 450 volts DC, and that's the working voltage, not its peak. So the surge on these will probably be up to 500. And as far as I read it, that's the 15th week of 1973. This one was the worst of the 2. And here's the other one. Again, same date code on that cap, so probably from the same batch. In fact, the batch numbers might be the same on them. Yep, they are. So those 2, but it's got new ones in now. Good job. Well, that's all we've got time for, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up. All of your comments and questions down below. We do need some questions for next week's Q&A. Subscriber numbers have been going up, but the percentage of those who watch the videos versus who are subscribed is still in the 35 to 40% range. So again, we need to get those numbers up. We've got a couple of new channel members, so thank you very much to those who have joined the channel. And I've got 3 members now who have been. I've got 3 guys who have been members for over 6 months now. That's Planet Caravan, that's Boromedic, and that's Mr. Dreadeye. So you guys, thank you so much for supporting me. You know I really appreciate it. And that just leaves me to say I will catch you all at the next one.